I am thrilled to be here with Mike Obadal. Tara was just talking about speed and scale. That feels like a great place to start. You've talked about the Army moving faster. What's at the top of your modernization dashboard right now? And what kind of fast results should we expect to see, in the next year?
Yeah, Joe, thanks, and appreciate everybody that's here and allowing me to come and talk, and tell some of the Army story. Most importantly, a lot of appreciation for the Govini team and the leader of that Govini team, Tara. So she has developed this venue this event over the years, and as I think we can see, it's probably doubled in attendance from last year. So all of you, thanks very much. Joe, to get to your question, I think there's a number of things, and the current situation really underscores it. First, I would offer these, and these are big projects that I look at from my seat. It's the offensive and defensive missile portfolio, and that's probably not surprising to anyone. And there's two aspects of that. One is the existing exquisite munitions that we have, and how do we not only quadruple, as the president recently said, we need to quadruple our magazine depth, but how do we do that in a rapid manner to backfill the munitions that have been expended, and then to fill out other theaters that need it. So as we do that with exquisite munitions, it's important that we look at everything else that can fill capability gaps so that we are on the right side of the cost curve when it comes to either offensive fires or defensive fires. So taking not only the primes and helping them accelerate to the point that we can continue to produce PAC-3 PRISM missiles and THAAD, ATACMS, but also to level the market over the years and drive up many of the very intriguing and emerging companies that have small-scale missile production and are developing very rapidly, and to do that by incentivizing them through conditional contracts, potential multi-year contracts, and allowing them to go out and leverage private capital. If we do that, we can magnify the value of the US dollars that go to it. So that's number one. And the second one, and there's a number, but really the second one I think is the digitization of the United States Army. And backstage we talked about, we used to have 800 plus individual bespoke computer systems that ran all of our data. And today we're down to just over 200, and the goal is to drive it down to a few foundational programs that run off a common data layer, and then all of those functions that used to be programs and full stack solutions are now application suites and low-code software. And that's either done on the tactical side through Next Gen C2, or it's done on the enterprise and the business side.
Since you brought up munitions, I'm going to jump right into it. The administration has announced agreements with RTX and Lockheed to ramp up production of key missiles and munitions, and obviously this is a hot topic at the moment because of questions surrounding the size of U.S. munition stockpiles as we, engage in combat in Iran. What does the surge in capacity mean for the Army?
There's a couple of things that we need to consider. One is the supply chain. That's probably the most critical aspect of ramping up the production of these. So solid rocket motors and some of the exquisite electronics that go into specifically seeker heads. That has to be done through both government and private industry working together to ensure that we can shore that up. The second is for the Army, modularity. So we have a common missile launcher that's in development right now, and the goal is, whether it's offensive or defensive, everything goes into that package. And so as new and emerging companies or the traditional primes build new munitions for the Army, it's built to a common mission system and it's built to a common launcher. And then that provides commanders, and you'll hear from General Joe Ryan later today about operational outcomes and what does this kind of theme mean to him. The ability to change munitions very rapidly and at different scales based on the operational situation. And it provides a dilemma to the adversary because they can't tell what types of munitions are loaded in what types of containers.
These are, these strike me as future efforts, right? The expanding of capacity that's going on now as part of these framework deals aren't going to produce munitions for a while. The missiles that you're talking about, there's a future effort. Can you say, why is it so hard to ramp up capacity for these systems? What are the choke points in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think, when we put in an order for missiles, the lead time is not measured in months. It's measured in years, and that's been the historic norm. What Deputy Secretary of War Feinberg has done over the course of the past year is negotiate multi-year deals. And so instead of buying in tranches, and whether it's fighter jets or it's missiles, you go to Congress, you receive the authority for a multi-year. And so doing that allows the companies to go out and secure the supply chain that they need with the right investment, and it allows their subcomponent suppliers to do the same thing. So to me, number one is give that multi-year demand signal that allows them to go leverage, internal capital and report to their shareholders and their board the right things, or go out and leverage external capital to do that.
In the RTX and Lockheed announcements are for framework deals, are we going to expect, or should we expect contracts in the near term?
Yeah, that's the expectation. That's the goal, and I think you'll see that some of that's been accomplished already, and there's a lot more work to do. The last year, I think, has been about setting the conditions to get to the right contract language.
And can I ask if I could move on to another area where capacity is important and speed are drones. We've seen in Ukraine how drones are transforming the battle space. At the same time, Ukraine is producing drones on a scale of millions, and the Pentagon's goals around its drone dominance program are in the tens of thousands. Can you say, explain why is it so hard to, what are the barriers, for the U.S. getting to, the millions? Why tens of thousands as sort of an immediate goal?
Yeah. Obviously, a hugely complex issue. First and foremost is there really is no U.S. supplier base for drones compared to China. I mean, they own somewhere between 80 to 90% of the U.S. market. And that means that they own a significant portion of the supply chain. So there are some things like brushless motors and circuit cards that just aren't produced in scale in the United States. So the department itself has taken on, and the U.S. government and the department has taken on the effort to try to bolster the U.S. Market for small drones. There's a number, and I'm sure anybody that's in that industry is familiar with DOG and what they're doing inside the department. But there's also service-specific efforts. And for the Army, part of what that is to utilize organic industrial base and to produce not only, some drones that go out into the units, but then utilize our advanced manufacturing in the organic industrial base to produce things like brushless motors and circuit cards so that we can not only use them for Army drones, but then also push them out into industry as needed. It's important to know, though, that throughout the Army, whether it's 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, it's the 173rd Airborne, the 101st Airborne, they're manufacturing their own drones. And they're doing it for less than $1,000. Now, these are not exquisite drones, but they're first-person viewers that allow them to go out and just treat them as disposable items and get hundreds and thousands of reps by soldiers who then are creating the doctrine and creating the DNA of drone use in our formation that we'd never be able to have if we just had a small number of exquisite drones. So parallel efforts in a lot of ways.
I just wanted to dig in a little bit on what you said, because it sounds very interesting. So using the organic industrial base to build drones means what? The depots that are, that we associate with like maintenance and munitions manufacturing, or how does that, could you say a little bit more about how that works, and is that a new way of using the organic industrial base, or an old way?
Yeah, it's a new way. And so for those of you not familiar with the organic industrial base, in the Army, it's 23 arsenals, plants, and depots. Almost every one of them created during World War II, pushing out tons of millions of tanks and parts and artillery rounds. And over the years have done incredible maintenance, repair, overhaul, upgrade work, munitions production, but they've started to suffer, and for a number of reasons. A smaller military is certainly one of them, but the competition with original equipment manufacturers for overhaul and repair. So we have these facilities, and every one of them exists in someone's district or state, and state. And so Congress is very emotionally tied to these, because it's been a part of the community's DNA in every one of these cities for 70 plus years. Many of them look like they still did during World War II, castings and forging the way that they have their warehouses, and they're in the same buildings. Army Materiel Command is launching on an OIB modernization technique, and there's a whole lot of things outside of drones that we're doing to try and drive up our direct labor hours, and in the process drive down our indirect costs and our labor costs. When it comes to drones, it's really about advanced manufacturing. Drones is just a product, but it's how do we inject advanced manufacturing techniques, machines, capabilities into organic industrial base so that we can produce obsolete parts that original equipment manufacturers don't produce anymore, or that the lead time is 24 months for a repair part for a tank. All of those things can be done through advanced manufacturing, and we have the workforce, and we just need to upskill them, and we need to upskill or upgrade the capabilities that they have.
And the idea is that they would be making brushless motors, or some of these like sensors or optics, some of these kind of thin points in the supply chain, or not quite?
Yeah, there's a number of things that they're focused on right now. So one is they are assembling some kits that they pull in, so we can just push those out to units, and units can iterate on them. But brushless motors is a big one, because there's not a large, robust manufacturing capability in the United States. So they've identified this is a critical part. We're going to start going down that road, and they'll be producing them this month. But then we have a marketplace throughout the Army that's like an Amazon Prime marketplace, and those are advertised. Units like the 101st and 2nd Armored Cavalry can go and order the parts that they need.
I want to move on to next generation command and control. You have divisions that are basically acting as product managers, and industry is working alongside soldiers. What should we expect to see this year as some of these experiments translate into fielded capabilities?
Yeah, I think, Joe Welsh is going to come on later today, and I think be able to talk about some of the specifics. I do want to highlight, is Jim Rainey here? There's Jim Rainey. So this Next Gen C2 is Jim Rainey is the Army Futures Command CG. And he said, hey, we have all these bespoke systems that don't share data, and we should be using modern software techniques. And so a data integration layer with a suite of applications that are by warfighting function, and they're modular and they can be replaced. What we're watching in 4th Infantry Division and in 25th ID, and to Jim's credit, he drove this personally, because in just 24 months, you had what was a concept, not even a developed concept, just an idea concept. 24 months later, it's fielded in 2 divisions. And the division commanders, to your point, are now product managers for the U.S. Army. They are responsible for designing it. Throughout the rest of this year, you're going to see a number of the Ivy Sting, Lightning Surge type exercises. And PC-6 out in the summer at National Training Center is less of a destination. It's just one milepost on the development. And then over the next 2 or 3 years is Next Gen C2 being fielded out into all of the divisions in the Army.
And it's an interesting, it's interesting also because on the one hand you have, a newcomer and a relative newcomer now in Anduril working with one of those, and then you have Lockheed working with another. Is this a competition? Will we see a down select at some point? Is there going to be one, between the Lightning Strike and Ivy Sting? Is there going to be one of these at the end, or something else?
I'm sure that Anduril and Lockheed Martin see it as a competition. I don't know that we as the Army do. So this is an example of how we have to change our acquisition processes. The most important thing to me was not how these are designed in the divisions, but can these two systems that are being developed by LM and the team in Fort Carson, Colorado, can they be interoperable? Because if they can't, then we're doing something wrong, right? Our interfaces, our data has to be able to flow back and forth. If we can't do that, then we need to restart. And so that's what Joe Welsh and I talk about is, hey, as we develop these out, do we need one ubiquitous system across the United States Army? Or is it more important that we get the data integration layer right across the Army, and more importantly, across the entire joint force, so that we are interoperable from a data perspective? And then the interfaces, the applications can all be changed very rapidly, and they don't have to be ubiquitous across the Army. So because the development of modern software is so intuitive, you don't have to send people away for 2 weeks to train on it. It's 10 minutes. And so people can fall in on these systems and learn them very quickly. That's a roundabout way of answering your question without answering your question of whether or not this is going to be a down select.
I mean, how is it going to change the way soldiers fight?
Yeah, I think this comes to information and situational awareness dominance. Hardware is what fights battles, but what succeeds and wins is situational awareness and information data dominance. So edge compute down to the squad level, right? Multiple layers of communication and data transfer that is occurring through an auto pace that the soldiers, the signaleers don't have to control. It's already occurring, whether it's changing the channel or the mechanism in the network that it's transporting on automatically without you and I ever knowing it, or it's prioritizing data so that the most critical data goes through when you have limited bandwidth or limited communication windows. All of that down there, then as you move up the echelon to the battalion, the brigade, the division, I'll use the example I like to use is right now, if a Gimler's rocket battery fires, they then put in data into a spreadsheet that says we expended this many, it makes its way up the system, and hours, days later, the logisticians 100 miles away receive that and turn that into a resupply. In Next Gen C2, it's immediate. Because the fires program will say, yes, we've expended a battery of Gimlers, that data is immediately accessible to the logisticians through their unique applications. And they immediately start planning how they backfill those munitions.
And presumably it's also about the drones. As we're talking about this proliferation of drones, you've got these first-person viewer drones. They've got to be able to have some kind of network to communicate, right? That's part of it. This is my pivot back to drones because there's something I wanted to ask you. We're talking about these kind of group 1 and group 2 drones, but what's next for big drones? If I'm right about this, the Army put out an RFI to replace the Gray Eagle. Can you talk a little bit about that next tier of drones and sort of what's coming for the Army there?
Yeah, I think if you weren't familiar with FARA, the Future Advanced, or Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft, which was canceled just within the last couple of years. Essentially, we're taking away an advanced attack helicopter, but we're replacing it through capabilities that we don't quite have fielded. So the Apache helicopter will continue out, the Echo model, to continue to provide the ability to sense, attack, support. All of those things are what we then have to build into Group 3, 4, 5 drones in the future. And they have to be able to work seamlessly with the ground force the way that a human would. And they're going to do some things far better than humans will, and they're going to have greater endurance. And you see some of the products that are out there today from companies, and they already do that. Now we have to get them to the point where they seamlessly integrate as well as humans. There is an unending supply of missions that we can do with these drones, and it's, all of the traditional missions, but then there are some others from electronic warfare and extending the range of some of our munitions that we don't currently have today.
Are we going to see some procurement activity, some next step after the RFI in the near future? Anything you can preview or anything schedule-wise to say there?
I don't have any concrete
Okay.
stuff that I'm going to put out,
Okay.
but it's, and frankly, what I'm trying to drive forward is how does the technology that goes into these exquisite drones drive how we shape the Army? Mm-hmm. And Chris Donahue over in Europe does a great job of laying out sustainable, attritable, consumable. So we have sustainable items that we have to protect, and those are human operated. Apache helicopters, Black Hawks, tanks. And we're going to do everything in a combined arms army to protect those. Then you have attritable. Gray Eagle is a perfect example. We don't want to lose it. It's a pretty exquisite item. But if we do, it's okay. And then we have consumable, and that gets down into Group 1 and 2 drones, where it's just continue to fill them into the formations. Group 3, 4, 5 sit in that middle, and it's taking those capabilities and figuring out how they integrate into a combined arms army. Because everybody's big on drones right now because of Ukraine. Ukraine is positional warfare, it's trench warfare, it is not how the United States Army fights. And I would offer that if Putin had a combined arms army, true combined arms maneuver army, he would have owned the capital of Ukraine in 2 weeks. Holding it is something different, but he would have gotten there. And if Ukraine had that type of military, they would have done far better on their counteroffensives. That's the United States Army, seize, hold, protect land, and do it through maneuver operations. And so it's more complicated than just taking what the Ukrainians or the Russians are doing and implementing it into the Army.
Something that, there's been a push in the Army. I wanted to ask about right to repair. There's a push from Sec Army, Dan Driscoll, that just fell short of making it into National Defense Authorization Act this past year. Are you using the authorities that you have now, and will in the meantime, and will the Army be pushing for right to repair in the next NDAA?
No and yes. We have not used all of the capabilities that we had at the negotiating table with companies. Mm-hmm. We are now. The AH-64 Echo, we can't repair any of the components on it in our organic industrial base in Corpus Christi Army Depot. It has to all go back to the original equipment manufacturer. Fundamentally different is the MV-75. From the beginning, from the RFP, has been we have to have technical data rights, and we have to have the right to repair. We have to overhaul transmissions and engines and do airframe repair without having to send it back to the manufacturer. And we have a great partner that has been working with us on that. So we haven't been doing it well. We are now implementing it. Legislative help would help, but we have to make sure that it doesn't indirectly hurt us. And so it can't be very broad. It's got to be very targeted to things. And there's existing U.S. code that talks about, and I wrote it down here, it gives unlimited rights, but not to detailed manufacturing or process data. That was excluded from the from the law. And then, so we've got to go back in and unpack that with the Hill to say, what are the things that we have to be able to do for field repairs, for obsolescence of parts down the road, or to ensure that our organic industrial base remains viable.
And do you have the ability to relook at contracts? Is that something that's happening, or are there other authorities that you have that are getting used now?
Yeah, we can always renegotiate contracts. There's a downside to that, obviously. But yes, what we're focused on right now are the modernization efforts, getting that right from a right to repair standpoint, and then we can go back and talk about the broader acquisition process. And so I'll pull this out.
Yeah.
All right, I brought a prop. This is a cotter pin. Any mechanic or anybody that's dealt with vehicles or aircraft knows what it is. It's a piece of metal that's bent into, and it holds the bolt or a nut onto a bolt. The price tag is on it. You want to read that?
Yeah, it says $988.
$988. So to be fair, this is a DLA controlled item, so non-Army controlled item, but we have to buy it from DLA. And to be fair to them, this isn't the highest, this is only the highest price that it's in there. The lowest price we found was $140, but average of about $600 because we buy one at a time or 10 at a time. And so we have, this small piece, we have 3 or 5 Bradleys waiting on it because it holds on the toe pintle. That this right here is a perfect example of we're going back and we're ordering things for hundreds of dollars that we could make for a few cents in the organic industrial base.
It's not made of platinum, just to be clear, right?
I'm pretty confident it's not. It's just steel.
You talked about, in the couple minutes we have left, you mentioned broader acquisition reform, and you've talked about the need for flexible contracting so that the Army can move quicker. While we're talking about things that the Army may be asking Congress for, what could you say you'll be asking for in the realm of flexible contracting authority, or something in that lane?
So this year we were able to get budget line item consolidation from Congress for 3 very innovative areas: EW, counter UAS, and UAS. And so that allows program managers and program executives to move money in the year of execution between emerging products or underperforming products. We have to expand that now, and Congress has been very good about that. We have to expand it.
Expand to software, something else?
Right, to a number of different areas, right? Munitions, certainly one of them, because we have a number of very intriguing, very capable companies that are rising up. So as we talk to Congress, we say, look, here are the areas that we've done, here's the performance of it, the visibility for you, here are the areas that we want to go forward. The number one thing that we can get from Congress, and I will tell every member of Congress that I come across, to include about 7 of them in the past 36 hours, CRs are a new way of life, or a normal way of life now. We just have to lean into that. So on October 1st, we have to have select new starts and the ability to ramp up production on certain existing things. We can't stop everything for 6 months as we go into a CR every year.
I think we're sticking the landing here. I wanted to say thank you for a great conversation. If we could all give Mike Obadal a round of applause, please.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.